Hey everybody, in today's video we're going to be looking at surface area and volume. Now the big thing here is there's going to be a lot of different formulas that we're going to be going through, but you will be given a formula sheet on any assessment. The biggest thing is you need to understand how to use the formulas. So knowing what information to look at from either the diagram or from the sentences and put that all together so that you are able to use these formulas. Now, with that being said, let's get started with rectangular prisms. So when we're looking at rectangular prisms, I'm going to start off with writing out the formula that we're going to be using. So we're going to be looking at surface area equals 2 times my length times width plus my length times height plus my width times height, then closing that bracket. So we want to look over at our diagram and label each one specifically so that when we're putting it into the formula, it's easy to follow. So I'm going to start out with our length. 10 feet is going to be our length. If we're looking at 14, we're going to call this your width, and then that's going to leave 8 as our height. Now, if you flip between the length and the width, it doesn't matter as long as you label them so that you're following it consistently. That way you're not going to get confused while you're going through your formula. So, actually, let's keep it so we can still see the numbers. We're going to follow this down with 2 that comes down, and we're going to put in length times width. So length is going to be 10, and our width is going to be 14, plus our length, which is 10, multiplied by our height, which is 8, plus our width, which is 14, multiplied by our height, which is 8. Closing that bracket. Again, this 2 carries down, and we have 10 multiplied by 14. Remember, we have to follow the order of operations here. So we want to start within the bracket, and then we're going to move to the multiplication outside the bracket. So our first part here is the length times the width, which is 10 times 14, which is 140. Next, we have our length times our height, which is 10 multiplied by 8, which is 80, plus we have our width times our height, so 14 times 8, which is 112. Close that bracket. Next thing we have to do is carry the 2 down again, and we have to add everything that's inside the bracket. So that's going to add up to 332. The last thing we do now is work on the outside of the bracket. So we have 2 multiplied by 332, which is going to get us a total surface area for the rectangular prism, which is 664. And don't forget, we need to add our unit. Well, our unit here is feet, so we have feet squared. So again, this is our formula that we're going to be using to calculate for rectangular prisms. The next one we're going to look at is a cylinder, so a cylindrical prism. So we have the formula, which is going to be surface area equals 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r times our height. Now our r is our radius and our h is our height. When we're looking at this here, 4.2 is going to equal our radius. Remember, if we have a circle from the middle outside is our radius, and if we have a circle and it goes all the way across, that's our diameter. If we have our diameter, we just have to divide it by 2 so that we can get our radius. But in this situation here, we've been given the radius, so we can put it into our formula. So we have 2 pi, r is our radius, so 4.2 squared, plus 2 times pi times our radius, which is 4.2, and our height, which is 9.6. I'm going to chunk this, so I'm going to do the 2 pi r squared, and then I'm also going to do the 2 pi r radius times height, so that I can add these together afterwards. So I'm going to do this first portion in one shot, which adds up to 110.8 plus, I have 2 times pi times r times h, which adds up to 253.3. The next thing I want to do is add all my beginning portion and my second portion together, and we're going to end up with 364.1, and we look over for a unit, millimeters squared. Again, very important, we're not forgetting to write our units down at the end. So our formula that we used here was 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r multiplied by our height. For next part here, we have a cone, and we're looking at the numbers that are we given below, which are the side, which is 23 inches. We have our radius, so from the middle of the circle out, we have 12 inches. And for our height, so if we have our height like this, right down the middle, we would have 20 inches. So the formula that we are going to be using for this is surface area equals pi rs plus pi r squared. So we have pi times our radius times our side multiplied by pi r squared. Question here, we've been given extra information. We've been given the height, but we don't really care about it when we're trying to use our formula. So given that 20 inches for the height doesn't really matter to us here. The first part, we put pi down, multiplied by a radius, which is 12, multiplied by the side, which is 23, plus pi, and then we have our radius, which is 12, and it's squared. So our surface, so we have pi multiplied by 12 times 23, which is going to get us 867.1, plus pi multiplied by 12 multiplied by 12, or you could look at it as pi r squared, which is 12 squared, we get 452.4. Last thing that we need to do is add our surface area together. So we have 867.1 plus 452.4, and we'll get 1,319.5. And then we look over and we have inches as our unit, and we have inches squared for our surface area. So that's, again, our formula for calculating for a cone, which is going to be pi r side multiplied by pi r squared. Moving over to the next page, we're looking at a pyramid. So we're given the side length, we're given the height, and we're also given the the length or width on the bottom. So we have our side, which is going to be 20, and then we have our height, if we were going right down the middle, which would be 15. So we want to now write out our formula for a pyramid, which is going to be 2 multiplied by our base times our side, plus base times base. So we'd have base squared, really, because we're going to have a square shape on the bottom of our pyramid. Now this is going to be 2 times the base times the side. So if we go over and label, we have 10 as our base, and then our side is 20. So 2 times 10 times our side, which is 20, plus 10 times 10. So I'm going to start off with our first portion there, which we have 2 times 10 times 20, which equals 400, plus 10 times 10, which equals 100. So our surface area of this pyramid is going to be 400 plus 100, which is 500. And we want to look over at our units, which is meters, and we're going to have meters squared. This is, again, going to be your formula that you will be given on any assessment, but this is your formula to understand how to input the information properly. Next, we have a sphere. So we have a radius, which is 1.75. So the center of it out is going to be 1.75 inches. The formula that we're going to be looking at is surface area equals 4 pi r squared. So surface area equals 4 times pi times r, so 1.75 squared. So the only thing you need to know for a sphere to calculate the surface area is the radius. When we put this all into the calculator together, what we're going to end up with is 38.5 inches squared. And this, again, is our formula for a sphere. So all you need to know is the radius for this. Moving on to volume now. Just like surface area, we're going to have a lot more formulas that we're going to be working with, but a reminder, you will be given all these formulas on your assessments. For this one here, we're looking at a rectangular prism, and we want to calculate the volume. Our formula for volume is length, so volume equals length times width times height. So, looking at our diagram below, 10 was our length, 14 was our width, and 8 was our height. Again, I'm labeling these so it's easy to put into the formula here. So we have our length, which is 10, multiplied by 14, which is our width, multiplied by 8, which is our height. So you have 10 times 14 times 8. Our volume for the rectangular prism is going to be 1,120 feet. Now this time we're calculating volume, so it's going to be feet cubed. That's an important difference. When you're doing volume, which is length times width times height, your answer is going to be cubed, not squared. When we're looking at a cylindrical prism, so a cylinder, our formula, which we're going to be using, is volume equals pi multiplied by r squared times the height. So pi r squared times height. Volume will equal pi, which comes right down, and our radius, which is going to be 4.2, so 4.2 squared multiplied by our height, which is going to be 9.6. And close that bracket. So volume equals pi times 4.2 squared, so 4.2 times 4.2 times 9.6 gets you 532.0, and our unit is millimeters, and again, it's important, it's cubed this time. Next, we're going to be moving on to cone. Again, we're given a radius of 12 and height of 20. Our formula, what we're going to be using is volume equals, and this time we have pi multiplied by r squared times height, so the same as the cylinder, but we're going to be dividing this by 3, because you can also tell if this was a cylinder, we'd be going straight up and we'd have a lot more that we'd be filling in. So we'd be filling in all this all the way around the cone. So we, in this situation, when we're finding a cone versus a cylinder, is we're dividing it by 3. So volume equals pi multiplied by a radius, which is 12. So our radius is 12 inches. So 12 squared, and then multiplied by our height, which is 20. Close that bracket, and we're dividing it by 3. I'm going to first work all the numbers on the top, so the pi r squared multiplied by height, and then I'll divide it by 3. So volume equals pi times 12 squared times 20, so 9,047.79 divided by 3. Our volume is going to equal 3,015.9, and it's going to be inches cubed. Again, important, we've moved into volume this time, so our final unit is cubed, not squared like surface area. Onto pyramid. If we're solving for the volume for a pyramid, we're going to be looking at a formula of volume equals base squared times height. And it's going to be divided by 3. So just like we did for the cone where you're dividing it by 3, same thing here for a pyramid as you're dividing it by 3. So we have volume equals, and we have our base squared. So 10 is going to be our base, and it's a square base, so each side is 10. So 10 squared multiplied by our height, which is 15, and it's divided by 3, equals 10 squared times 15, 15,000, divided by 3. Our volume is going to equal 500 meters cubed, because 1500 divided by 3 is 500, and our unit is meters, so we end up with meters cubed. I'll just add that v there. And our last shape we're going to be looking at today is a sphere, which is a formula of volume equals 4 times pi times r, and it's cubed, all divided by 3. So to use this formula, all that we need to know is our radius, which in this situation is 1.75 inches. Volume equals 4, which comes down, multiplied by pi, multiplied by my radius, which is 1.75, and this time it's cubed, so 1.75 cubed, all divided by 3 at the end. I'm going to start off with my top portion here, so my volume equals 4 times pi times 1.75 cubed equals 67.35, and make sure you're paying attention to that decimal when you're calculating. It was 347, so that rounds it up to 0.35. So make sure you're paying attention to that decimal and rounding it correctly. Then it's divided by 3, so volume equals 67.35 divided by 3, giving me, giving me 22.4, and our unit is inches. and it is cubed, not squared, because we're doing volume. So biggest thing to take away from this lesson is how to use the formulas properly. I will give you the formulas on all the assessments. You have to understand how to input the information correctly. And the second takeaway is when you're calculating units for surface area, your final answer is squared. And when you're finding your unit for volume, it is cubed. So that's the big difference. Surface area is squared, volume is cubed. Other than that, make sure you ask me any questions in class or send me a message on Teams.